My Airbnb business has made me $2.5 million in the last 4 years, and I don't even own the properties. What's up, guys? My name is Lucas, and I started this thing 4 years ago out of my parents' spare bedroom. Now Airbnb is my full-time income, and I've helped a bunch of students do the same thing from scratch. And the best part is you don't have to do a down payment or buy a house. You're just renting properties from landlords and subleasing them on Airbnb. So this is the full breakdown, the whole process of how I run my Airbnb business and how I teach my students, all in one video. So grab a notebook and let's go. All right, guys, so we're going to get right into it, and we're not going to waste any time here. So first thing we have to do is set up your LLC and get funded. I don't want to spend too much time on this part because genuinely it is the easiest part of this whole entire process. Another thing that you guys need to keep in mind, this video, I'm not going to gatekeep anything. So I'm going to give you all the information, all the resources and everything you need to get this started. A lot of you guys will just go and watch and click on another YouTube video. But if you have any questions, just hit me up on Instagram, DM me, and I'll be there. I answer your questions. So first thing we're going to do, set up your LLC. This is important. We need to get your business bank account, and we need to get funding if you don't have the cash saved up. Now, how much does it take to start your first Airbnb? I say to my students, you want somewhere between $8,000 to $12,000 to have a good cushion. More than that is better, of course. If you have like 15K, that's amazing, but 8 to 12K is a good amount to have. So if you don't have that cash saved up, if you don't have personal credit cards or loans or anything like that yet, that's why we're going to create the LLC, so that we can put you in a position where you're going to be able to apply for funding through 0% interest business credit cards. So when you're going to busy.com, this is where I create my LLC. You're going to file in the state that you live in. It just makes it a lot easier when you're applying for the business check-ins account. If you go to Chase, they most likely want you to live in the state that your LLC is in. So it's better to just do it whatever state you're in. If you're in Delaware, do it in Delaware. If you're in Wisconsin, do it in Wisconsin. And when you are picking the NAICS code, I always have trouble saying that because of all the freaking letters that are involved in that thing. But property management is what you want to pick for the business code. This is just another term for business code, business industry code. And the reason we're going to pick property management is because the banks see this as a less risky industry. And when you're applying for funding, you want to make sure that you are going to get approved for the maximum amount possible. And if you choose like real estate or rental leases or something like that, you're not going to get approved for as much. So this is what I like to do to kind of go around that. You can do property management because it's still related to Airbnb. And you can do something like interior design when you're putting in the code on Busy, so that when your LLC is created, it is created in an industry that is not as risky. So you're more likely to get approved for higher amounts of funding. And a lot of companies do this. It's basically just being structured as an umbrella company, a holding company. This LLC will be used to get your funding so that everything under that LLC could be your operating LLC, where you're actually going to be running the business. This LLC is literally just for you to get funding, right? So if you want help getting funded, by the way, just DM me on Instagram and I'll connect you with one of my funding partners that actually helps the rest of our students get funding through personal loans, credit cards, business credit cards, whatever you end up qualifying for. And if your credit sucks, also DM me because I can connect you to my credit repair guy. He's the same person that we use for funding as well, so that we can get your credit in a better position. Anyway, when you're picking the name for the LLC, you don't want to include your first name or last name or anything like that. You want to pick a broad company name and make sure that it's not like Airbnb. It doesn't say Airbnb in it, none of that, right? So you could say something like North Star Stays or something like that. You know, you can literally say something broad. It doesn't have to be something that has to be related with short-term rentals or anything like that. Just pick a broad name. Don't overthink it. Use Claude or ChatGPT to give you guys some ideas when you're picking out the name. And the cards that we're going to be applying for. So the business credit cards that are the best ones for 0% interest for the first 12 months are the Chase Ink Business and the Amex Blue Business Cash. These two cards are 0% for the first 12 years. And if you apply for these cards, you should be able to get a good amount of funding as well as applying for the secondary cards for Chase. So there's two 0% interest cards for Chase and there's two Amex 0% cards as well. So that's 4 cards in total. You should be able to get enough if your credit score is decent. If your credit score is below a 670 though, don't even try applying for these. You might ruin your chances. Just hit me up on Instagram. I'll help you with credit repair, tell you what you need to do next. You might qualify for like a personal loan instead, where that makes more sense for you. But the goal is to get around 20 to 30K in funding. This is just to have a cushion. Of course, like I said, if you have like a 10K on average, you can start your unit, but it's good to apply for this funding and aim for like 20 to 30K so you can stack a couple units in a couple of months, right? So that is pretty much all on the LLC. That is step one, is getting the LLC and getting funding, because if you don't have funding, you can't actually start this business. as a surprise. As much of a surprise as that sounds, you can't start this business if you don't get the funding. Another step I forgot to say is that when you're applying for the Chase credit cards, you need to open a checkings account at Chase. I'd recommend just going in person and talking to the person that you're opening the account with. Open that account up, make a good internal deposit. If you can deposit like $1,000, $2,000, that's going to increase your odds of getting approved for a higher limit. Okay. So the next step in the process is market research. Okay. So the way that I do my market research is I pick, let's say, whatever state you live in. This is what you can do. If you want the Airbnb to be in the state that you live in, it doesn't have to be like that, because once we set it up, you can automate pretty much everything and hire people and outsource tasks like handyman tasks and maintenance and cleaning teams to be in the local area of wherever your Airbnb is going to be. But let's say you want it to be in your state. I would pick a couple of major cities in your state, whether it's the capital or just other major cities that you know of that are popular and are a big hub and that you know people are going to, whether it's for tourism, whether it's for universities or there's hospitals there, whatever it is. And you're going to choose a couple of major cities that are expensive or even heavily regulated. And what you're going to do is you're going to go 10 to 30 minutes outside of that city, right? So let's say for example, Miami. Instead of investing your first short-term rental in Miami, I would go outside in the outskirts of Miami where it's 10 to 30 minutes away and it's still close enough. A good example is Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is very close to Miami, but it's not in Miami. Fort Lauderdale prices are cheaper. The rent is cheaper there. The regulations are less strict, and you can get a better deal on the rent, which means that you can charge more on Airbnb and still be able to profit, right? Because yes, technically being in Miami is going to have a better rate because you're closer to the attractions or whatever. But people that are willing to drive 10 to 20 minutes out to get to their destination and they're paying a cheaper price, they will pay to stay on the outskirts of the city. And that's kind of how this whole thing works. You're still close enough to ride to the city, and the guests will happily stay there if it's close enough. And this works with airports. This works with major cities. This works with prestigious universities, whatever it may be. If you are close enough and you're not in the center of it necessarily, that doesn't matter. You could still make good money because you're getting a better rate on rent. There's less regulations for short-term rentals, and you're still able to make a good profit. Now, what actually drives demand, and how do I pick my markets in the city that I'm going to be investing in? I like to look at a couple of things. Are there sporting events happening there? Whether it's big college basketball teams that play there, college football teams that play there, stadiums nearby where concerts are always happening. Are there universities, like prestigious universities, whether it's state universities or private universities that are very popular and lots of people are going to and enrolling every single year? Colleges, hospitals for travel nurses, airports, corporate hubs, and basically anytime there's seasonal tourism, right? There might be an area where for the whole month, Coachella, for example, in California, like that is going to be a place that is going to have demand at that certain time every single year. So it's important to consider all these things before you invest into a market. And it doesn't have to be Miami. It doesn't have to be Atlanta. It could literally be the outskirts of these places, and you're still able to make good money. And a lot of these places are places that you haven't even heard of, and they're not something that you've heard of on the map, or that even the people that are booking these places haven't heard of these places on the map. They hear these city names and they don't know where these cities are. Like they don't understand. Like they don't know what the outskirts city is, like next to Dallas, Plano, Texas. A lot of people don't really know of Plano, Texas. People know of Dallas, but Plano is really close to Dallas. And the people that are getting Airbnbs in Plano are making really good money because it's close enough to Dallas. And it doesn't matter if they don't know the name, because all they're doing is looking at the map feature on Airbnb, and they're seeing how close is this to my destination? How close is this to DFW Airport? How close is this to the Six Flags in Dallas? Like whatever it may be, they're looking at proximity. So that's why location is super, super important when you're getting your first unit. And just because something like you think, oh, Atlanta would do so well because Atlanta is like a huge hub. Think of all the saturation that is in Atlanta, right? Think about all the Airbnbs that have already been established there. When you're looking for a market, you want to look for a market that doesn't have a lot of saturation already. You want to be one of the first people in that market so that you can build up a portfolio of properties in that place and have good reviews so that when people come in later, it's too late because you're already on top. So the people that got started with Airbnb in Atlanta already got started years and years ago. And this whole arbitrage thing is pretty new still. So that's something that I would recommend staying away from is the major cities, but go around it. So these are some examples. These are some examples. Atlanta, some other places around Atlanta, or I don't know how to pronounce that, Marietta, Smyrna. These city names are really weird. For Dallas, it's Irving, Arlington, Garland, Plano, Texas, like I mentioned. For Miami, it's Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, Doro, Hialeah. All of these places are close enough to the destination of Miami, to the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. I think that's what the stadium name is. And close to every attraction that is in Miami, like South Beach and all these things. It's close enough where, look, they're willing to spend the money to go out and stay in these places further away as long as it's cheaper than the places in Miami. Because Miami and Airbnb Miami, you best believe that it's going to be expensive compared to the ones on the outside. So people that are trying to get a discount or trying to get a deal, they're going to book your place more likely than not. So if I haven't said this already, why the submarkets win? It's less regulations there, it's cheaper rent, and it's still close enough to ride to the city's demand. I said this earlier, and this is basically how I do my market research. This is the kind of the theory part of it, but we're going to get right into actually underwriting and doing your numbers before you even consider going through to a deal. Another thing I like to do before I go into a deal is I like to set these filters on Zillow.com, right? So obviously I put for rent, and I like to do 3 bedrooms or more because the point of Airbnb is not to emulate. It's not to emulate a hotel. A hotel has 1 or 2 beds, maybe has a balcony, has like a microwave, it has like 1 bathroom, maybe has a couch, and then a desk and a chair. And it's literally a little space where people can hang out. And it's meant for only 2 or 4 people. It's not meant for families. Airbnb is meant for bigger groups. So why would you try and compete with the hotels in the area by only having 1 or 2 bedrooms? So I like to go for 3 bedrooms or more. And when you're going for places, make sure to look out for amenities like a backyard. Look out for amenities like pools, hot tubs, whatever it is the property may have. You want to have those standout amenities that beat the competition on Airbnb, but definitely beat the competition in the hotels. And a lot of people forget about this. They just try to get a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom because it feels safe. But I really would not go that route because you're just going to be shooting yourself in the foot. So filter 3 bedroom minimum. The more bathrooms, the better, right? So if you have 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom competing against a 4 bedroom and a 2 bathroom, the 2 bathroom will always win, even if it's more expensive, because people don't want to share 1 toilet and 1 shower. So go for more bathrooms if you can afford it. The max rent, I would put $5,000. This is just my personal preference. If you have more capital, then go above that. But usually when you go over 5K, the profit margins start getting a little bit iffy. And if you want to get started for much cheaper, you don't have to do this, but if you want to get started for a cheaper rate, filter the furnished option so that you can actually get only furnished listings in the Zillow search. So if you type in the word furnished in the keywords, you should be able only to see the furnished options. So moving on to how we actually underwrite the deals and make sure, okay, this is going to profit. What I like to do is the 2x rule. So I go to a website called airdna.co, and that's where I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of that website already. It's called airdna.co. And I like to run the property addresses in AirDNA so I can see how much it's projected to make per year in annual revenue. This is including the cleaning cost, and you have a good estimate on AirDNA and how much you'll spend in cleanings, unless you're cleaning the property yourself, which I don't recommend. But when you are on AirDNA, I want you to keep this in mind. AirDNA is going to be pulling properties that aren't doing the best and are doing really good, right? So you're getting an average between the two. You're getting an average between shitty properties and properties that actually do really well. So the numbers aren't going to be 100% accurate. It is literally just an average. But when you're doing market research and when you're looking at properties on Zillow, keep in mind that let's say the number is under the 2x mark, which let me just explain this real quick before I go into that. So the 2x rule is this. Let's say your property, the rent is $4,500. $4,500 is $54,000 a year in rent. That's not including cleanings or utilities or any of the other expenses that incur when you operate an Airbnb business, right? So what I like to do to keep a safe cushion on top of that and knowing that I'm going to profit, I like to do the 2x rule. So I do 4,500 times 24 months, and that's $108,000 in revenue. And I know that if this property, if I type in the address, copy and paste the address from Zillow onto airdna.co, and AirDNA tells me on average it will make $108,000 a year in revenue, I know that is a good property for me to go to, and I'm going to greenlight that property all day because the averages are telling me that is going to make that much. Now, like I said before, it's not 100% accurate, right? So you know that you are comparing yourself to shitty properties. So let's say the property that you want to go with on Zillow is really nice looking, has a pool, all these amenities, backyard, everything like that. And then you see the AirDNA property that it's comparing it to, and it's a property with really bad reviews, really bad pictures, crappy amenities, and it's nothing like the property that you're thinking about going to. that's not a smart move for you to consider that property in the average, right? So what you can do is actually X out that property from the average. But what I like to do to cross check properties that don't hit the 2x mark, so I can double check and see really, okay, is this a bad property or are the numbers just being skewed? I like to copy and paste the address into Airbnb.com. So I can literally pretend like I am staying at that house. So I copy and paste the address from Zillow. I type it on Airbnb.com as if I'm looking for a Airbnb in that exact area. And if let's say it has 3 bed, 3 baths, I'll filter that on Airbnb so it only shows me properties that have 3 beds and 3 baths, and it's in that exact area of that address. Now Airbnb is going to show me all of the properties in that little 1 mile radius of that address of 3 bed, 3 baths. So now I'm able to manually look. Now I'm able to manually look at the properties that have similar metrics, right? So I'm looking at properties that look similar to mine, not ones that have crappy reviews or crappy amenities. And I'm looking at how much are they charging per night. And you can see on someone's calendar when they're booked out by seeing if they're crossed out on the actual calendar. So let's say someone's charging $200 a night and you see that 20 nights out of this month are crossed out. I'd say this is a pretty good property depending on the math. Just do the math. Just do 200 to 250 a night times 20 and then compare that to whatever you're paying in rent. And you're able to do that with a couple of properties and cross-check it, then I would put it back on the list and greenlight it. Because if it makes sense in real, because Airbnb is real data in real time, like these places are getting booked right now, they're on the market. So I would trust that more than AirDNA. AirDNA is just to pull the averages, but if you want to cross-check and really just make sure that these properties are doing well, even if it says it's not doing well on AirDNA, go to Airbnb, check it out yourself, and you're going to be able to save, you're able to qualify a lot more properties this way. Another thing that I like to do is actually get the seasonality graph from a website called BNBCalc.com. So if you pay for the paid version of AirDNA.co, then you can get the seasonality, but it's kind of like, I think it's like $400 a year now or something like that. It used to be cheaper. But if you want to get a free 7-day trial for BNB Calc, this will actually show you the seasonality for that address you're looking at. So it will show you the yearly revenue, but it will also show you the seasonality. It's a lot cheaper than AirDNA for the premium. You can get a 7-day free trial. And this will show you which months it actually does well. Which months is it the high season? When is it the low season? And it does matter when you invest in the property, because if you invest into a short-term rental at the beginning of a low season, your return on investment period is going to extend dramatically because you're starting at the low season when it's not doing as well as other months. If you start in the middle of a mid-season or a high season, you're basically preparing yourself for a faster ROI, and you're just going to have more success when starting this business out if you do it at the right time. So head to BNB Calc. I'm not even sponsored by them or anything. Head to BNB Calc and put the address in so you can see the seasonality, so you can see when the high season and the low season is. It'll basically show you a list of all the months, January through December, and go through every single month in that specific city and location to tell you exactly how much you're expected to make per month, each month of the year, because not every single month you're going to make the same exact amount. For Airbnb, for short-term rentals, there's seasonality in this industry, and that's just how it works. So going back to AirDNA.co, AirDNA is going to tell you the occupancy percentage, the average daily rate, and that's going to equal your monthly revenue, okay? So when you are running your numbers, it's important to know exactly how much you're expected to actually profit after paying for the rent, the cleaning, the Wi-Fi, the utilities, the insurance, all of these fees that we have to operate the business so that we can get your monthly net profit. So I actually have a calculator and a spreadsheet, it's a deal analyzer that you can plug all these numbers into. And I can leave that down in the description down below, where you can actually just plug in all these numbers and literally be able to see how much you're going to profit on a monthly and an annual basis. And you can just use all these numbers from AirDNA so that you can plug it right into the deal analyzer, and you should be good to go from there. You'll know how much you're going to make on the property before you start reaching out to the landlord. So when I look for a property, I try to go for a place that is making at least $20,000 a year in annual profit, right? $20,000 to $30,000 a year is what we're trying to get for. If we get more than $30,000, that's amazing. That's a really good deal. But usually the deals are between 20 to 30 if it's not a luxury unit. If it's a luxury unit, you can make a lot more, of course. And the average break even for the return on investment is 4 to 6 months. And this obviously depends a little bit when you're starting, whether you're starting in high season or low season, but I recommend you just don't start in a low season so that your break even is 4 to 6 months and it doesn't take forever to get your money back. So now that you know how to run the numbers on a property, you know where you're going to look, you know where you're going to do the Zillow searches, and you know where you want to do your Airbnb, and you found a couple of units that are green lighted, you ran your numbers, and you know how much they're going to make. This is when we go to step 4, which is cold calling. We've done cold emails before where we email the landlord or the realtor and do a conversation and pitch the business by email. But we've realized at this point, in my experience doing this and with my students, it is way faster to just get on the phone and cold call these landlords. If their phone number is not listed on Zillow or Facebook Marketplace or wherever you're looking, then of course you have to send them a message first and pique interest so that you can get them on the phone. But if you have their phone number, then just call them and get it out of the way. And we have a pretty simple script that we go through when we're talking to these landlords or these realtors. Doesn't matter who it is. The realtor's trying to get paid. The landlord wants his rent paid. It's the same thing. You just have to structure the conversation a little bit differently. Instead of pretending like you're speaking to the landlord, you're talking to the realtor and asking for his permission to ask the landlord for the permission to do the short-term rentals. So when you're getting on the phone, the script I like to go through is just, hey, name. It's literally just a regular conversation. Hey, Mr. Landlord, it's Lucas. How's it going? Well, yada, yada, yada. Landlord's going to respond. Then you could say, I saw this listing on Zillow. Is it still available to rent? They're going to say, yeah, it's still available. And then you just ask, regular conversation. Great. What lease terms are you looking for right now? 1 year or 2 year? And always, like, when you're talking to these landlords, don't sound like you're about to pitch. Talk slower. You want to sound chill. You want to sound like you don't care. You want to sound like you're just a regular person reaching out and you're not trying to sell them anything, right? You're just talking to them like, great. So what kind of lease terms are you guys looking for? Like a 1 year or 2 year? Like, it matters how you say things. And when you are pitching the business, you have to sound confident still. Don't sound like salesy or sleazy, but it matters when you understand how to actually run the business. And this is why I say, before you start calling these landlords, do your research on the business model, on Airbnb arbitrage, on how to run a short-term rental business. Because if not, you're going to sound stupid when these landlords start asking you questions, okay? So after you do this little small talk right here, you're going to say, one last question. Do you think the owner will be opposed to letting us sublease short term? We work with a lot of university faculty, travel nurses, and just people that come to the area for work and just tourism as well. And then after you say that, they're either going to be like, oh, can you explain a little bit more? Oh, what do you mean by that? And I have a couple of frequently asked questions that they say. So for example, if they say, what do you mean by sublease? I usually always just say, yeah, you frame yourself as a business. My hospitality company rents to vetted clients, travel nurses, professionals, short-term and mid-term. And we accept a variety of guests. We ID check them. We basically just make sure that these guests are who they say they are and they're coming for the right reasons, which is true because when you accept an Airbnb booking, you know exactly why they're coming to the area. And obviously you don't want a party to happen, so you're going to make sure that you vet these guests out. And there's a couple of more questions. What if it gets damaged? Cleaners inspect after every stay. Plus, there is Proper Insurance, which is a short-term rental insurance company that is designed for short-term rental hosts like us, like Airbnb hosts. And if you do your research on this business before you start talking to these landlords, everything is going to be fine. But you need to study it before so that you're not reading off a script when you're answering the questions. My favorite thing to answer is when they're like, oh, are you doing Airbnb? I literally just say to them, yeah, Airbnb is one of the platforms that we use to market our listing, but we also use other platforms like VRBO, Booking.com, Furnish Finder, and we also just market it ourselves with our own advertisements as well on our own website. So, Airbnb is like one of the channels we use to market it, but it's just literally one of the channels. And when you just downplay them like that, and you kind of just like, they're expecting you to just say, yeah, it's Airbnb. What do you think? Like when you say it like that, when you say it like a professional, they're like, oh, okay, well, that's not as bad as I thought it would be. And literally every time I say it like that, they don't care. They don't mind. So it's all about how you frame yourself in this conversation it is about what you say. You need to sound like an expert, of course, but it's also about how confidently you say it. Even if you don't have any units, you need to talk to these people like you've already done this before. It does not matter if you have not done it before. I got my first deal talking exactly like this, and I didn't have any Airbnbs. And the only reason I got it is because I sounded confident in what I do, and I had a solid business plan for how I was going to handle parties, for how I was going to handle guest damages, for how I was going to handle guests coming in and out, and the cleaning team, and the interior design, and all of these factors that landlords want to know because they're trusting you to rent out their property to strangers. If a landlord is going to trust you to do that, think about how you would feel in their shoes. You would want someone to put security cameras on the outside. You would want someone to put noise decibel detectors on the inside so that parties don't happen. You would want someone to have insurance. You would want someone to have the fire extinguishers there in case anything happens. You would want these security measures to be put in place. So just put yourself in the shoes of the landlord when you're talking to them and directly ask them, whether it's the landlord or the realtor, just directly ask, do you think the landlord would be opposed for us subleasing the unit out to our clients? You are a business. You're not an individual when you're speaking to these people. Remember that. And it's not a lie because you just opened up an LLC, so you're officially a business now, technically, right? So that is how it works. And a quick tip I wanted to go over: the best times to call are between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So if you are looking for properties in different time zones, this is perfect because let's say you're looking for properties on the East Coast. You call those people during 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. A couple hours go by, and then now the West Coast is on the same time frame, so you can call people on the West Coast. And basically, this is just perfect because these are the best times to cold call. People are like just getting in the office, they're just settled in, they're done with their morning routine, and 5 to 7 they're getting out of work and they're ready to hop on the call. And these people are trying to get the property rented out. Don't act like you're a burden when you're cold calling these people. It's not like you're cold calling leads from a list they don't want to be called from. Their number is publicly available on Zillow, and they know that people are going to call them, so don't feel bad about it. So guys, after the landlord says yes, or they say, oh, they're open to it, the goal of this is to guide them through this, right? They don't know what's next. They've never done this before. They never rented out to a guy that's going to sublease his property out on a short-term rental website. They don't know what's next. So just say, yeah, so the next step would really just be to do a walkthrough of the property and just make sure everything is in good working order. And that's when you are going to be doing the tour and the inspection of the property. And we're going to inspect the property using the inspection checklist that I have. I can also link that down below if you guys are interested in that as well. And basically, this checklist is going to make sure that everything is in good working order in the property. Appliances, electricity, plumbing, cracks, pests, and making sure that when you are there, you are taking wide angle photos with your iPhone like this, because you want to make sure that if you do list the property, if you do go through with that property, you are going to have pictures that you can use ChatGPT to put AI furniture in, so that when you are getting the listing set up, before you have any furniture in there, you can secure bookings on Airbnb with the AI photos. As long as you put in the description that they're AI virtually staged, there's no problem doing that. After the inspection, let's say that there's a couple of things wrong with the property, things that need to be fixed, things that just need to be better maintained. It doesn't look as nice as it does in the pictures, whatever it is. You want to wait a couple of hours before you call them back. You don't want to call them back right away. Otherwise, you look desperate and you're not going to be able to really negotiate if you sound desperate. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about with the landlords after the walkthrough, let's say it's not perfect. And a lot of these properties that are listed on Zillow, they're never exactly as they look on the pictures. There's always something through this checklist that I'm about to give you that you're able to negotiate. So what I like to ask is, are you firm on that 4K rent price, or can you do a little bit better? And you really just want to frame yourself as a company, right? You're looking at yourself as a business, and you're just in the finance department. You're just in the finance department, and you're like, hey, I really like this property, but this 4K price, like, can you go down on a little bit? Like, I'm really just making sure that it's good to go with the finance team and everything. And you're basically just sounding like you're a legit company with a bunch of employees, even though it's just you. And that is how you make this work, because people don't want to trust individuals. They want to trust companies. They want to trust people with processes and backed statements. They want to trust these things. So if it's just you and you're asking for a rent price, you sound like a douchebag. But if you have the finance team asking for a rent reduction, you're not the bad guy. So always try not to be the bad guy when you're doing these negotiations. If a landlord is asking you for a security deposit, I would always mention that we have insurance and that we cover all the damages with our insurance, and that a security deposit really isn't necessary. And I would always ask for a reduction in that. And same thing for last month's rent. If a landlord is trying to charge you last month's rent, you could literally tell them, look, we're trying to build a long-term relationship with you here. We're not really looking to move out. If this works for us, we're looking to extend the lease like for years and years to come, because if it's a good business, why would we leave? So if we can get just a concession on the last month's rent, that would help us out a lot. And they're usually just open to it, because that last month's rent is just supposed to cover the month of rent when you move out. But if you're saying that you're most likely not going to move out because you want to keep running the business and making money, then they're open to that, right? And at least one of these three, or one of these four that I just mentioned, because you can also ask for a concession on the first 1 to 2 weeks, so they could set up the property. You can say, hey, we're okay with the rent price, we're okay with everything, but we wanted to ask if we can get a concession for 1 week rent on the first month, just because that first week we're not really making any money, and we're just setting up the property and doing the interior design process and just making sure we're prepared for bookings. So I mean, if you just tell them what's going on, they're going to, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a partnership with you and the landlord. It's not just something that you're not signing a lease like a regular tenant. They understand they're getting into a partnership with you. You're taking care of their house, and in return, you're also paying their rent. You're also taking care of the property with maintenance and cleanings and all these things. So keep in mind that this is beneficial to both people, both parties. It's not just beneficial to you just making money, right? So try and get as many as these as you can, so that you can save money, but don't try and get all of them, right? So if you get the first two, You get a couple of concessions on rent price, security deposit. Don't go for another one. Like, don't be greedy, or else they're gonna think they're gonna think you're just asking for too much and just trying to take advantage of them. And don't take advantage of people's kindness or anything. So moving on to step 6 and 7, where you sign and automate. This is where you already secured the property, you negotiated it with the landlord, you got a good price, you got concessions, you ran your numbers already, and the property is furnished and ready to go. Whether you got it furnished already, if you didn't get it furnished already, this is where you have to budget your furniture. I recommend doing $1,000 per room. So let's say it has 5 rooms, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen, and a living room, 5 rooms total. I'm spending max $5,000 on furniture on that property. I'm not going over that. If I can spend less, great. We want to make sure that we're not going over that so that our return on investment period doesn't take forever. And you can get some very good, affordable options on Amazon, on Wayfair, and especially Facebook Marketplace. So if you can find some good deals on there, it's going to lower your cost to furnish the place, which is going to be super important. You can use AI, ChatGPT, to literally give you inspiration for the interior design. Make sure that when you're doing the interior design, you have throw blankets, throw pillows, you have wall art in the properties. And look at other Airbnbs for inspiration, and Airbnb that you would like to stay in, the Airbnbs that have a theme, that have a vibe. Make sure it's not plain, it just has like a bed and a nightstand and a lamp, and that's it. Try and keep the Airbnbs colorful and matching the vibe throughout the whole entire house, and because that's going to look the most attractive in the pictures. Add amenities if you can to the outdoor space. If you have an outdoor space, put a dining table, put a barbecue, things that you would like to see in an Airbnb. And you can also look at the competition in your area, see what amenities they're offering, and try to one-up them basically and stand out in the market. After you set up the property, I would immediately call proper insurance. It's $80 to $150 a month on average. Do not skip this part. This is going to provide short-term rental insurance for you and the owner of the home. The company is literally called Proper Insurance, Proper Insure. Just look them up on Google or something, give them a call, ask for a quote for the property, say you're running an Airbnb and you need an insurance policy. Get that out of the way in the very beginning. Then I like to go to a website called PriceLabs. Now, PriceLabs will give you a good template for your prices. So I don't keep it connected all year round because I like to dynamically price my units, which means I'm lowering my prices, which I can make a whole separate video about dynamically pricing. But it's basically when we're just lowering your prices a little bit every single day, making sure that you're competing with the market. But PriceLabs will tell you the best price to list it at today, according to the holidays and all the events in the area. So there's a lot of events that happen that I wasn't even aware of, and PriceLabs knew about it because all the other hotels were charging crazy amounts. And I've made thousands of dollars in a couple of nights because of PriceLabs and because of them knowing when the high demand days are that we don't even know about as people that are just not consumers of whatever event is going on. So I connected to PriceLabs. Just go to Google, pricelabs.com, connect your Airbnb listing. Then I like to go to Turno, which is where I find cleaners. It's just turno.com. You can basically bid for cleaners, or cleaners will bid to clean your place, and you can just find someone for the best price. They have reviews. It's very good. It's a very good app for finding cleaners, and they're going to be your boots on the ground. So it's very important to find a good cleaner that's communicative, that has good reviews. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Just go to Turno, find your cleaner. And then if you want, you can connect your listing to Hospitable. So we're going to connect it not just to Airbnb, but to Booking.com and to VRBO, because those platforms will also get you extra bookings. So what I like to do to have everything in one channel manager, I like using Hospitable. You can use Guesty. There's other channel managers you can use, but this is just the one I use. I use Hospitable. It's not the only one out there. This is going to link your calendar together so you don't get double bookings, and it's going to link your prices together so you don't have to manually update on each platform. So Hospitable makes my life a lot easier with the 12 units that I have, and yeah, it makes everything way easier. TaskRabbit is to find handymen to do repairs. So let's say you don't live in the state that you are doing the actual Airbnb in, right? You don't live in the state, so you go to TaskRabbit. Let's say your Airbnb is in Georgia, you live in Maine or something like that. Go to TaskRabbit, type in the city that you're looking for the person, for the handyman that's going to go to your Airbnb and build the furniture and do all that stuff. And just tell them what the project is. Tell them you're looking for a long-term local maintenance guy in the area that's going to be taking care of the property, and tell them that you'll pay him to build the furniture. And from there, you want to pay him off the app and build like a long-term relationship with him. Do this with a couple of guys that you think would actually fit. TaskRabbit has a bunch of reviews as well where you can see what past jobs they've done and what experience they have. So just choose the right guy from there, the right person, and just go from there and hire them as your handyman so that you can have them on call whenever something is going on at the property. This is going to be very important if you want to automate this business because you can't be going to the property all the time, especially if it's out of state. Also, make sure to hire a professional photographer. You can find professional photographers on TaskRabbit, but on the Airbnb app itself, they offer people that actually are photographers for Airbnb specifically to come out there to the house and take professional pictures with a professional camera. Don't try to do this on your iPhone and cheap out. You're going to lose out on a lot of bookings if you do that, right? So this is how you go live with your property. That is going to make you literally between $2,000 to $5,000 a month in profit, depending on when the season is. And once it's set up, your daily job really is just checking the pricing and replying to messages, because you shouldn't have to go to the property anymore. And even for applying for the messages, we can set up automated messages like the check-in instructions on Airbnb.com and Hospitable, which is the channel manager that I was talking about, so that you're not like repeating the same information every single guest. And that is pretty much the whole entire process of how to start your Airbnb business. I didn't leave anything out of this video, so that you guys could literally just go there and take action. See my freaking treadmill in the back real quick. But yeah, that is everything. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys take action and got value from this. And if you guys have any questions on how to start this business, just DM me on Instagram, or if you want to directly apply to work with me one-on-one, I have a link down below where you can just fill out a questionnaire and we can get on a call and discuss how that would work for you. That is all for today, and thank you guys for watching.